I came back from the war believing in two things: a man's promise and a signed piece of paper. Out there, if someone looked you in the eye and said, "I've got your back," it meant something. Your life depended on that promise. And if an order was written, stamped, and signed, you followed it. No questions asked. But the battlefield waiting for me at home was different. Prices were climbing. Jobs were disappearing. The mailman brought more bills than letters. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, spreading them out like enemy maps, trying to figure out which one I could afford not to pay that month. That's when he showed up. Middle of the afternoon. Nice suit. Clean shoes that had never seen mud. He spoke with the calm certainty of a surgeon and the smile of an old friend. He said one phrase that hooked me instantly. "You've done your duty. Now it's time your country takes care of you." He laid out the war bonds on my table, official-looking papers with stamps and signatures. Guaranteed returns. Fixed dates. A patriotic investment, he called it. "You're not just making money," he said. "You're protecting your family. You're helping rebuild the nation." I didn't just buy bonds that day. I bought relief. I bought a future. I bought the feeling that, for once, the system might actually work in my favor. And because I believed, I made others believe. I told friends from the neighborhood, guys I'd grown up with, men who were just as tired and scared as I was. "This is safe," I said. "This is guaranteed." They trusted me more than they trusted the man in the suit. Months later, everything exploded. Forged documents. Fake stamps. A network that vanished overnight, along with our savings. No payouts. No explanations. Just silence. I wasn't just broke. I was the guy who'd led others into the trap. If you've ever felt that sting of trusting the wrong promise, stay with me. Because in a moment, I'll show you how that old scam is still alive today, just with new names and prettier clothes. Before we go on, tell me in the comments, what hits you hardest right now? Fear of being scammed, having no savings, or feeling like you're always one bill away from disaster? And if this story already feels a little too familiar, subscribe so you don't miss the next part. I remember the first weeks after I got back like they were filmed in gray. The war was over, but nothing felt victorious. Groceries cost more every week. Factories were hiring less, not more. The suit I wore to every job interview started to feel like a costume from a life that wasn't mine. At home, the kitchen table was my new battlefield. Not maps and strategies, just a pile of bills. Rent. Utilities. An overdue notice with red letters that looked a lot like blood if you stared at it long enough. I still believed in two things: a man's promise and a signed piece of paper. That's what got me through the chaos out there. Orders. Contracts. You follow them, you survive. Simple. But real life isn't simple. One afternoon, while I was counting dollars and pretending they could stretch further than they could, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, I saw what looked like stability in human form. Clean shave, polished shoes, a suit that fit too well to belong to a desperate man. He introduced himself like we were already friends. He knew my name. He knew my unit. He thanked me for my service the way people do when they're about to ask you for something big. Then he laid it out. War bonds. Guaranteed returns. Government-backed. Patriotic. You protected your country, he said. Now it's time to let your country protect you. It sounded like a lifeline. I didn't hear investment. I heard relief. I heard, you're not failing your family. I heard this nightmare has an exit. The papers looked official. Stamps. Seals. Signatures. Everything my training had told me to trust. I didn't hesitate long. I put in what I had. Then I did something worse. I told my friends. Because when you're drowning and someone hands you a rope, you don't just grab it. You shout to everyone else. Over here. Before I go on, tell me, have you ever grabbed a rope like that, financially, and later realized it was tied to nothing? If this story is hitting close to home, stay with me and consider subscribing. The next parts are where the real lessons begin. I remember the night everything finally clicked, the night the illusion truly shattered. It wasn't when the police shrugged and told me there was nothing to be done. It wasn't when the bank manager, with rehearsed sympathy, explained that the documents were fake. It was later, alone, at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd signed those bonds with a trembling hand and a hopeful heart, where I'd laid out the brochures for my friends, tracing the numbers with my finger, saying, "Look, this is safe. This is guaranteed. This is our chance." That night, the table was covered with the same papers, but now I saw them differently. I spread everything out under the weak yellow light. The war bond contracts, the stamped envelopes, the receipts, the business card of the man who had looked me in the eye and called me brother. I started reading, not as a desperate man wanting to believe, but as someone who'd already lost everything. And the pattern appeared. The words that hooked me weren't the numbers. It wasn't the interest rate, or the timeline, or the official-looking seals. It was the promises. Guaranteed. Zero risk. Protected by, and then a complicated name I hadn't bothered to check. Everyone is doing it. This is how real men provide for their families after the war. That one cut the deepest. I realized I hadn't just bought bonds. I'd bought a story about myself, about what a good father, a good husband, a good friend was supposed to do. He had sold me certainty at a moment when everything in my life felt uncertain. And I paid for it with my savings. My pride. My friends' trust. So, when people now ask me, how could you fall for that? I answer honestly, I wasn't stupid. I was scared. And he knew exactly how to talk to a scared man. If any part of this hits a nerve, stick with me. I'm going to break down how these same promises, guaranteed income, no risk, easy money, are showing up in your life right now, just dressed in modern clothes. Before we go there, tell me, what's the heaviest weight on your chest today? Fear of getting scammed, having no savings, or living one bad month away from disaster? I didn't sleep the night I found out. I sat at the kitchen table, the same place I'd signed those war bonds, staring at the fake stamps and forged signatures spread out like a crime scene. The numbers didn't hurt as much as the faces. My buddies from the factory, my neighbor who'd trusted me with what little she had. They hadn't believed the stranger. They believed me. I thought the war had taught me about losses. Turns out, losing money is one thing. Losing your word is another. The next morning, I started knocking on doors, not as a hero, but as the man who'd failed everyone. Some wouldn't even let me in. One guy slammed the door in my face so hard the glass rattled. I don't blame him. Others listened in silence while I explained what I'd discovered. The forged documents, the shell companies, the accounts already emptied. I'll fix this, I kept saying, even though I had no idea how. It wasn't a promise I knew I could keep. It was a promise I knew I had to try. That was the moment something shifted in me. Up to then, money had been numbers on a page, coins in a jar, bills in a wallet. Now I saw what it really was. Trust, compressed into paper and ink. Every guarantee we'd been sold had fed on one thing, our fear. Fear of not being able to pay rent. Fear of getting sick. Fear of ending up with nothing after giving everything. That fear made us blind. As I started tracing the scammer's trail, banks, post offices, government offices, I began to notice a pattern that hasn't changed much since then. The language is always the same, guaranteed, risk-free, once in a lifetime. You'd be stupid to miss this. Different eras, different products, same bait. If this story is hitting a nerve, stay with me. In a minute, I'll show you the practical shields I wish I'd had back then. But first, I want to hear from you. What cuts deeper for you right now? Fear of getting scammed, the frustration of having no savings, or the constant stress of living on the edge? If this is resonating, tap like so this message reaches more people who need it, and stick around, because the next part is where we start rebuilding, for real. I started digging into his trail the same way I learned to clear a minefield, slowly, carefully, one step at a time. At first, I thought I'd find a criminal mastermind, some genius with charts, offshore accounts, and complicated formulas I'd never understand. But the deeper I went, the more disappointed I became. It wasn't genius. It was simple, brutally simple. He always showed up where fear was highest. Outside factories announcing layoffs, at churches after funerals, at small-town bars where people paid their tabs with coins instead of bills. He listened. That was his first weapon. He'd ask, "What worries you most right now?" And people would tell him, "Losing the house. My kid's future. Getting sick with no insurance." Same answers, over and over. Different faces, same fear. Then he'd offer the same drug to all of us, certainty. There's a pattern to it, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. First, they validate your fear. You're right. This country is going downhill. The system is rigged. Regular people don't stand a chance. Then, they isolate you. But I have access to something most people don't. This isn't for everyone. Only for people who are smart enough to act now. Finally, they wrap it in morality. It's patriotic. It's for your family. You'd be irresponsible not to seize this opportunity. Fear, exclusivity, morality. That's the holy trinity of every scam I've met since then. War bonds, miracle investments, guaranteed crypto bots, magic side hustles that promise $10,000 a month for doing almost nothing. They don't sell numbers. They sell a story where you finally feel safe and in control. If any of this is hitting close to home, stay with me and hit that like so this kind of message reaches more people before they sign the wrong paper. Now I want to ask you something, and be honest with yourself, even if you don't answer out loud. What scares you more right now? Getting scammed, never having real savings, or living one paycheck away from disaster? Because in the next part, I'm going to stop talking about his strategy and start giving you yours. If you want that, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. I didn't catch him. Not the man in the suit, anyway. By the time I had gathered documents, testimonies, and enough courage to face what I'd done, he was already gone. New city, new name, new opportunity. The police shrugged. The lawyer cost more than I had, and all I got was a thin folder and a cold phrase. There's not much we can do. For a while, I thought that was the end of the story. Villain disappears. Victims lick their wounds. Life moves on, a little darker, a little harder. But that's when something clicked. If I couldn't reclaim the money, maybe I could reclaim the meaning. I started meeting the people I'd brought into the scheme. One by one. Kitchen tables, back porches, church basements. I expected anger, and I got it. But under the anger, there was something else, fear. Not just of being broke, but of never trusting themselves again. That's what the scam really stole. It wasn't just dollars. It was confidence. So I made a decision. If I couldn't hunt down the scammer, I would hunt down the pattern. I'd learn exactly how people like him operate and how people like us get pulled in. And then I'd break that cycle, starting with me. I dove into everything I'd once avoided. Budgets, interest rates, risk profiles. Not sexy stuff. Not heroic. But each spreadsheet, each article, each awkward conversation with someone smarter than me was a small act of war against my own ignorance. And slowly, the battlefield shifted. I stopped asking, how do I get my money back fast? And started asking, how do I make sure this never happens again? To me, or to anyone who'll listen to me. If you've made it this far, hit that like button. Not for me, but to remind yourself you're taking this seriously. Now I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments. What's your biggest wound right now? Is it the fear of being scammed, the pain of having no savings, or the stress of always living on the edge? If you want to walk through this battlefield with me, not as victims, but as learners, subscribe. This isn't about quick fixes. It's about rebuilding the part of you that money should never be allowed to destroy, your trust in yourself. I wish I could tell you I tracked that man down and forced him to pay every cent back. That justice was clean and cinematic. It wasn't. I found a name that wasn't real, an address that was abandoned, and a trail of people just like me, ashamed, angry, and broke. The system shrugged. The police report went into a folder. Life moved on, just not for us. For a while, I stayed stuck in one question. How could I be so stupid? But that's the wrong question. The right question is, what was I really buying? Because money was just the surface. Underneath, I was buying peace of mind. Certainty. A shortcut out of fear. That's when I started to look around and realized the scammer hadn't disappeared. He'd multiplied. Different faces, same promise. Guaranteed monthly income. Double your money in 90 days. No risk, no effort, just results. Online now. In your feed. In your inbox. Some wear suits, some wear hoodies, some hold luxury cars in the background of a vertical video. But they're all selling the same product. Comfort, with a forged signature. And here's the hard truth I had to swallow. I was the perfect target. Not because I was dumb, but because I was scared and impatient. That combination is gasoline for every fraud on the planet. So I started doing something I had never done with money, slowing down. Instead of asking, how fast can this grow? I began asking, what do I lose if this goes wrong? Who actually benefits if I sign this? Can I explain this investment to a 12-year-old? If the answer was confusion, pressure, or too good to be true, I walked away. Tell me in the comments. What weighs on you the most right now? Fear of getting scammed, having no savings, or living right on the edge every month? If this story is hitting close to home, stick with me. In the next part, I'm going to break down practical ways to build real stability, slow, honest, and in your control. So here I am, years after that knock on the door, looking you in the eye through a screen instead of across a kitchen table. Back then, I lost money. But what really broke me was losing trust, my own and everyone else's. I thought I'd never get that back. I was wrong. It didn't come back with a jackpot or some magical investment. It came back slowly, in small decisions that didn't feel heroic at all. Saying, I don't understand this, explain it again. Telling a friend, I can't promise you this is safe. Admitting, I got burned once. I'm not rushing in again. I realized something. Your real return on investment isn't just interest or profit. It's sleeping at night. It's not jumping when the phone rings. It's opening your bank app without that punch in the gut. That's what I want for you. So if you've ever fallen for a smooth talker, clicked something that felt a little too good, or just stayed paralyzed, afraid to move at all, you're not stupid. You're human. And you're living in a world where fear and urgency are being weaponized against you every single day. Here's my quiet invitation. Don't chase certainty. Build resilience. Start small. One honest look at your numbers. One boundary with money. If I don't understand it, I don't buy it. One step toward a real plan instead of a miracle. If any part of my story hit a nerve, tap that like. Not for me, but as your own signal. I'm done being hunted. I'm going to learn to protect myself. Now I want to hear from you. Really hear from you. What hurts you most right now? Fear of falling for a scam again? Having no savings at all? Or living so close to the edge that one bill could knock everything down? Tell me in the comments. I read them, and they shape what I make next. And if you want to keep walking this road with me, no hype, no guaranteed returns, just clear, honest strategies, hit subscribe. You've seen what false promises can do. Now let's build something real, one decision at a time.